I'm going to call the Urban Affairs Committee meeting to order. It is January 26th. Can everybody hear me? I sound funny on my end, so I hope I'm okay.
We can hear you.
Thank you. We have one item on our agenda this evening. It's the continued review of order number 2020-100-7995B, the application for a special permit by WP Marlborough, Massachusetts, owner LLC, Wayside Residential, it's actually Waypoint, 339 Boston Post Road East, to construct a multifamily dwelling residential project. I believe we have the applicant's attorney and several members of their team with us, so I'm going to turn it over to them to start us off with some information.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record again, Brian Falk from Myrick O'Connell here on behalf of the applicant. Just please give a wave if for some reason you can't hear me or I'm getting garbled. Councilors should have received our submission materials from last week, including a revised decision and materials related to traffic and transportation. Council also received today a comment email from the city engineer concerning transportation issues and an email from the conservation officer regarding open space preservation. At our meeting with Urban Affairs last time, councilors had additional questions concerning transportation issues and access to our site. And tonight we have our transportation expert Giles Ham of Vanessa & Associates here to review some of those issues and address your questions. Before I turn things over to Giles, I just want to make a few comments regarding the amended draft decision we filed last week. You'll note several changes in the red line. First, we are proposing a $200,000 payment towards the study, design, and construction of a traffic signal at the site entrance opposite Village Drive. We understand that Village Drive residents would like to see a light at that driveway. We have no issues with a light there, as it would benefit our residents as well. But since a signal is in MassDOT's control and not in our control and not in the city's control, we think this payment will go a long way towards supporting a push for a light. The city and residents will be able to point to a pool of funds when raising this issue with the state, and you would absolutely have our support in that effort. In addition, we're proposing several traffic calming measures near the site to improve conditions, going beyond the substantial improvements being made by MassDOT. These measures should slow traffic and make turns easier for residents. This is in addition to the roadway improvements proposed by MassDOT. As Giles will explain, the new Route 20 will improve conditions for existing residents in terms of turning and traffic flow. Our project will not negate those improvements to Route 20. As mentioned before, we believe this site is going to be developed. Our use requires the approval of this council, unlike retail uses, office uses, medical uses, and recreation center uses that may be built as of right, which would have a much greater impact on traffic than our use and would come without many of the benefits that we're bringing to the table. We're hopeful that the efforts we've made to address the council's concerns will help us come to a resolution on this issue and move towards the review of some of the other issues detailed in our draft decision. With that, I want to turn things over to Giles Ham. Giles?
Mr. Ham, I'm sorry, before you start, I want to go back to some things that I should have done at the beginning of the meeting so that I'm not in trouble with the AG's office. I want to let everybody know that this meeting is being held virtually with councilors attending in person and remotely. No public attendance is permitted. I will take a roll call of the members of the committee and announce who else is here from the City Council, either in chambers or on the Teams meeting. So to begin with, voting committee members. Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers is present in the council chamber.
Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette is present in the council chambers.
Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin is present in chamber.
Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner is present.
And Councilor Roby is here. I am on the Teams meeting. Also in attendance in the chamber, we have Councilor Ossing, we have Councilor Perlman, and Councilor Oram on the Teams meeting. Thank you very much. Mr. Ham, you can continue now.
A good evening. For the record, Giles Ham with Vanessa & Associates. So we've created a series of slides that depicts turning movements into and out of Village Drive and our driveway with and without the Mass DOT improvements. So if we can just jump ahead a few more slides till we get one of those turning movements on. Next slide, please. Perfect. So this slide depicts left turns into Village Drive. And what we've shown here, going from left to right, is an existing condition movement. The center slide is with the Mass DOT improvements. And then the final slide on the right would be with our project in place. So under current conditions, the left turn in, if you're waiting to turn left turn into Village Drive, you have to wait in the eastbound through travel lane. And that's quite difficult. You're required to stop in the lane so you can have queues behind you. And when we look at the accident experience in these areas, you do have some rear end accidents that currently exist under current conditions. With the Mass DOT plan in the middle, you can see there's a widened section. It's actually a 45-foot wide roadway with a 13-foot center turn lane. And you can also see the 5-foot bike lanes in each direction. So under this plan, when you turn left into Village Drive, you get to pull into the center turn lane, wait for that westbound gap, and then move into the driveway. So again, this is much, much safer than the current conditions. And this is a result of a lengthy design process between Mass DOT, their consultants, and the city. So the third slide on the right or side shows really those left turn movements that can work together. So nothing really changes for the Village Drive left turn movement. The two movements can operate simultaneously. So there's really virtually no impact to the Village Drive residents for the left turn in movement. Next slide, please. So this slide shows left turn out movements. So under current conditions for Village Drive, you have to wait for a east and westbound gap to turn out, an opening in the roadway to turn out, and you would make that movement when there's a gap available. Under the proposed plan, again, there'll be the center turn lane. So you can actually kind of make this movement in kind of two movements. You can move out into the center turn lane and then merge into the eastbound travel lane. And that's how most people would make the turning movement, especially when traffic conditions are busy during the peak hours. The right side shows just how these movements would work simultaneously. Again, they can work simultaneously with very little impact to Village Drive. It's designed such that they can move together. Next slide, please. So this slide shows right turn out of Village Drive, and again, it's very simple today. You right turn out, you wait for that gap in the westbound traffic, and you make that movement. Even with the Mass DOT improvements, it's very similar movement. You're waiting for that gap in the westbound travel flow, and then you would move out. What we've shown on the right is if there's a right turn movement and a left turn movement concurrently, essentially the right turn out of Village Drive would have the right of way, and these would really these movements would happen in sequence. The right turn would move, and then the left turn would move. And there's a very little impact with this type of movement for Village Drive residents. Next slide. So this just shows a series of movements if there was a right turn out with a left turn out at Village Drive. So similarly, current conditions are just as they are with a left turn out. You wait for the gap. With the center turn lane, you would do it in that two-part movement. And on the right turn out of our driveway would have the right of way over the left turn out, and they would operate in sequence with very little impact to Village Drive in terms of this movement here. And finally, we've just shown this. Did we go forward? Village Drive. Go to the next slide. Go back one. So we're okay. So I'm sorry. So this shows a left turn in at Village Drive, and then it just shows if a car was waiting to turn left out of our project, the left turn in would occur first into Village Drive, and then our car would move after that movement. So the left turn in has the right of way. Next slide, please. So this is we've shown you some of these slides before, but Mass DOT will widen Route 20 from 34 feet to 45 feet. And that represents a significant safety and capacity improvement over current conditions. We've worked with Waypoint and we've come up with some safety enhancements that we can add to the Mass DOT plan. So working from the left side of this plan, near Victoria Lane, so Mass DOT has proposed a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. So we're going to supplement that sign with a radar feedback sign. So if someone's traveling 45, they'll get immediate feedback that they're going too fast. They'll show they're going 45, and then they should slow down. And we find this is an effective means to slow traffic down along corridors such as Route 20. So the next, if you look to the east, there's a Mass DOT has a proposed crosswalk with your typical just crosswalk signage. So we've proposed to supplement that with what's called, we call an RRFB, which is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. Essentially, it's just a beacon that's on both sides of the street, so a pedestrian can press a button, it'll flash, indicate to the travelers to stop, and then you cross safely. And we think this is a significant safety enhancement. We think this is very important to add this to the safety of the corridor and for pedestrians moving along this corridor. Next slide. So this just depicts the four-way intersection. So our driveway opposite Village Drive. Early on in the process, the city engineer had asked us to come up with the best location for the driveway. So we feel that's located opposite Village Drive as a four-way intersection. We've had some correspondence with Mass DOT with regard to this location, and they've support this location and think that it does make sense. Then next slide, please. So finally, this is just moving easterly to the east of our driveway in Village Drive. Going in the westbound direction, we've added that same radar feedback sign that, again, will help slow traffic down. So I think just overall, from a traffic perspective, we've made some very meaningful and significant changes to the project, really to help reduce the impact and improve safety conditions, the safety project that Mass DOT has proposed. So we've reduced the project size, we've relocated our driveway, and we've also added these safety enhancements. So we think that's very significant. And then finally, the next slide, we have provided a comparison of the downsized residential project to a by-right retail development. So our site engineers have looked at the plans, and they feel that we can add we could by right have a 47,000 square foot retail development on this site, and not getting all the specific numbers, but it's about 4.7 to 5 times the amount of traffic during the weekday daily and weekday evening peak hour. Obviously, morning peak hour retail is lighter, so it would be similar traffic conditions during the morning peak hour. So that really concludes my supplemental comments. The next slide, I think we can turn it over to either Tom or Brian. Thank you.
Might I suggest if there are city councilors on the committee that have questions on the slides while they're up, they could ask now if there's no objection by anybody?
Councilor Roby, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions about the slides. First is if there is if someone's in the Villages and wants to take a left turn onto Route 20, and if someone is waiting to take a left turn into the project, is that going to interfere with exiting the Villages? Basically, the reverse of the slide that's up there right now, back it up one. Okay, there's a red car trying to come out of the Villages. If that scenario was reversed, the one in the Villages has to wait, until the left turn is into the project. Is that true?
That's correct. So there's a normal sequence of right of way, and so the main line left turn would have right of way.
Right.
Keep in mind that's an easier movement, and the volume, the level of these movements aren't significant in terms of the volume. But yes, you're correct.
Okay. Good. Well, it's you know, the volume is only an issue during rush hour, right? Okay. And actually, in that part of, you know, based upon the traffic study that you did, that you shared with us back in December, rush hour is effectively about 3 hours. And, you know, we'll get into that a little bit later. So I think that there's still an issue as far as left turns and basically conflicts between left turns in and left turns out that can cause an issue and, you know, just kind of still blocks traffic from doing that. The other question I had is, when you refer to 47,000 square feet development, is that based upon the total acreage of the property, or is that just about the property that can be developed? Because the majority of the property is actually wetlands.
My understanding is that that size development could be accommodated on that site under its current conditions with the wetlands.
Okay.
Any other questions, Councilor Doucette? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Okay, Madam Chair?
Councilor Landers?
Yeah, I'll have more to say later, but, you know, I spent a lot of time looking at these beautiful diagrams here, and color-coded, and arrows, and cars. Quite honestly, when I looked, I guess Monday, and this afternoon, I went down there today, I guess I'd be using this presentation that we just listened to, all right, to demonstrate the need for a light there. You got people that are taking a left, a right, a left, and I know traffic will be stopped for the most part, but you also have traffic moving on Route 20. People rushing home from work, rushing to daycare, and so forth like that. The only way you can start making left turns and right turns and stop and hesitate, because that's a wide area there. I think Route 20 is about 43 feet wide there between the different lanes and the bicycle path and stuff like that. So really, it kind of convinced me, looking at it today in the presentation, that that's what I would use to demonstrate to the powers to be, whether that's the state or what have you, that there should definitely be a traffic light there for people coming out of both sites, for people crossing the street. Now, I think with that crosswalk and with the yellow lights on each side, you know, I have a problem with people, even on Main Street, stopping for those cones. The only way you can guarantee that people are going to stop on a highway, on a roadway, is a red light. Not a blinking yellow, not a cone in the middle. So, quite honestly, what we've just heard is, I think, that should convince the powers to be, or convince the developer, that, you know, unless we have that degree of safety in the movement of traffic, you know, I'm not so sure where we can go with this. That's all for now. I'll have more to say later, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the committee with questions? Seeing or hearing none, are there any other councilors with questions on the slides we've just seen? Councilor Oram?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to echo what Councilor Doucette and Councilor Landers just noted. I have the same concerns and no need to repeat them. Thank you.
All right, so that takes care of the slides. They may be brought back up again later. Attorney Falk, if you want to continue, if you have more presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was our presentation on traffic and transportation for the night. The last slide you have there is our proposed new condition putting forward $200,000 towards study, design, and construction of a light at that intersection. As I mentioned, we have no issue with a light there. We think this works without a light, but we have no issue with a light being there. And I think with this condition, with this special permit, the likelihood of getting a light there goes up quite a bit. Rather than just pointing to a situation just for Village Drive, the city and anyone else who wants to push this forward can point to additional users in the area, but also, more importantly, funding to make design changes to the Route 20 improvements that are going forward. It's not an insignificant amount of money, especially for a project that's already reduced itself by 25%. Again, we think the center turn lane makes significant improvements to the area for residents that are there. It's not going to be the same roadway. And with the traffic calming measures that we're advancing and the funding we're putting towards a light, I think we've addressed councilors' concerns. I understand and have heard many of those concerns and the wish for a light there. Again, we are happy to have a light there, and we're putting funds forward to try to make that happen.
Thank you, Attorney Falk. So, council has received a lot of information. We have gotten some comments back from department heads. We have a revised draft permit. I think my choice would be to continue discussion by going through the draft permit, and I think that may then bring up questions, comments from the city council. So if that's amenable to the committee members.
Councilor Roby?
Councilor Doucette?
Yes, thank you. I do want to get back to the traffic. I mean, as you said before, you were talking about the slides, and I wanted to get back into more of the details about the traffic because I had a chance to kind of review the material that's presented to us earlier last month. So with the change that they did in dropping the number, the size of the development, the exiting traffic during the morning peak hours goes from 50 to 37, entering drops from 51 to 38. That's an improvement. It went from horrendous to really bad in my view. But the raw data was done during the summer. That's not necessarily the peak time for traffic. And the other point is that if you actually look at the table of data, the traffic, peak traffic is really 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours at night. So this is a traffic issue that is not just a 1 hour peak, but covers a much broader span. And really, the change in traffic still increases by 4% versus 5% in an already chronic condition. So these are issues I think need to be, would be addressed with a traffic light. Route 20 is going under development. I'm looking forward to that. This development, I really enjoy. I like the way it's designed. I don't like the location that it's in, and the timing could not be worse for these guys, nothing personal. But between the pandemic and either the Route 20 construction can work in your favor or it can work against you in this. But basically, right now, Route 20 is 2 lanes to basically near Burger King and RTN. Then it merges into 1 lane. It's all going to change, so it's all going to be a single lane, but that's going to make much more consistent traffic going up and down Route 20 from here. The other point is we're talking about distances between lights and what the distance is between this and the Farm Road lights. There's already lights on Route 20 between this development and Sudbury. There's a light at Hager Street. The difference between the distance between Hager Street and Raytheon is about 0.4 of a mile. Distance between Raytheon and DeCenzo is about 0.5 of a mile. Distance between DeCenzo and Farm Road is 0.3 of a mile. And the distance between Farm Road and Village Drive is 0.4 of a mile. So there's already precedence for short distances of lights that could be addressed with this. So, and I said, I think that these guys are really trying to address a lot of the needs of the community. I think their water management for the floodplain is really a good plan. It's all green, which I really enjoy. I think the traffic is right now a great unknown because of the pandemic and because of the Route 20 construction. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure if the traffic flow per hour is going to change at all, which again justifies the light. So that's pretty much, the other thing is I have to say, you know, supporting a crosswalk light, great idea, but it's a significant improvement. But again, what Councilor Landers said, you know, a crosswalk light is good. The traffic light would be the better solution. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Doucette. That was very important information and a lot of detail, and I thank you for doing all of the work on that. But bottom line, I think we all know that the warrant doesn't meet the counts, the traffic counts that were done, doesn't meet the warrant that the State Department of Transportation has set up. So we know at this point, based on the warrant, that there will not be a traffic light. If we can push, as has been suggested by Attorney Falk, there is a possibility that DOT would concede that a traffic light is a good idea regardless of warrant and traffic counts. So that has to be a decision that each of us makes and how that impacts our decision on the special permit going forward. So anybody else have discussions?
Madam Chair, Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions still focused on the traffic light. Brian, I think one for you, and then perhaps Giles, one for you as well. Brian, you had suggested that, you know, with the commitment of the $200,000, you know, as part of the special permit, that DOT would look more favorably upon putting in a traffic light. Is that part of any of the warrant requirements or something that they use to judge whether or not a community should or should not have a traffic light?
Thank you, Councilor Navin. Not that I'm aware of. My point is, and Councilor Doucette, you know, raised this. Look at the lights that are along the roadway now. Are all of them warranted? Do they all meet the requirements? Right. Probably not all of them. The requirements are have not been in place for a great long period of time. This is what MassDOT currently looks at for whether a light is warranted or not. But as we all know, things happen. Lights get put in. And our point in putting the funds together is not to meet a requirement of MassDOT. It's to provide the city and residents, ourselves, and others who would want to see a light there with something to point to, so that when we're going forward to leaders at the state level to say a light is really needed here, we have an answer for, well, how are we going to look into it now? How are we going to pay for that? This is part of the answer. I'm not saying it's the only answer.
Sure.
And again, we would be happy to have a light here. It's not in our control, and unfortunately, it's not in the city's control. It's in the state's control, but with some funding and some political willpower, it could very well happen. I can't promise that, I can't predict that, but it could very well happen. I think it's certainly more likely to happen when we can point to a pool of funds to help look into it and study it and possibly construct it. Just one thing I also wanted to mention, I know I had mentioned that we've gotten some comment letters from city departments. City engineer did send an email earlier today going through the issues, and we've had a lot of back and forth with him. He spent a lot of time on this, and he did mention that, you know, in his mind, we've adequately addressed the city's concerns about traffic and transportation. And you know, I was one of the more surprising emails I've seen today. I was very pleased to see it because it means a lot coming from Tom DePerso, because I know he takes these things very seriously and spent a lot of time with our proposal and pushing us to do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the engineer's comments as well. And don't misunderstand me. I was not, and perhaps I should have started by saying, you know, thank you for what the proponent has put forward. It is clear, and I was going to say more about this later, but you know, it is clear that you guys have been acting in good faith and been good partners to try and to make some of these improvements happen. Not only with the 200,000, but also with you know, the reduction. You know, the carpooling efforts and, you know, the flashing lights and other improvement safety, you know, where you have the ability to make those efforts and those improvements, you've stepped up. Unfortunately, I think some of the concerns, as we have all noted, do come with whether or not we can have the traffic light there, or whether we can convince DOT to do so. You know, it is very, very helpful to have the $200,000. I think it's challenging and nerve-wracking for some of us to make a decision not knowing what DOT will say in the long run. But I appreciate your points there. My other question might be for Giles, and I'm sorry if it's in some of the materials that we've already sent. Clearly, as of now, the traffic trips do not meet the warrant from DOT as proposed for this development. We've heard a lot about whether or not, if this doesn't go in, there is a by right development that can happen that, as the slides noted, could increase the traffic up to 5 times more during those certain time, during the high traffic periods. Do you know if those numbers were put into effect because another development that could go in as of right went in, would that trip the warrant? And would that development, not automatically, but would we then meet those requirements to put a traffic light in?
Mr. Hamm, if you're still on, if you want to.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at, so we haven't done the warrant analysis for retail development, but the warrants look at 8-hour warrants and look at 4-hour warrants and then peak hour warrants. So we haven't done it, but obviously with a significant amount of more traffic, it may meet a warrant. We just haven't looked at that yet.
Thank you very much. That's all I have for now, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, while we're still on specific traffic and the lights, any other questions?
Madam Chair, Councilor Perlman.
Councilor Perlman.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could pull the slide deck back up for a second. I had a question regarding one of the slides, if that's possible. On the diagram that also shows the speed limit signs, my question was regarding the placement of those signs and if there's sort of state requirements of how close they need to be either to the crosswalk. I know there was the addition of the, kind of radar to determine the speed limit of the car passing, but I would imagine that to still be maybe too close to the area for that person to slow down in time. So I was curious if you could speak to that directly. If that was what the state proposes, as you mentioned, and if that's like an exact location, they have to be so many feet from, an opening, or if the placement was just more determined based on the curvature of the road.
So we had taken basically the Mass DOT plans and worked off those plans. So where the speed limit signs are today are what's been proposed based upon Mass DOT's review, their consultant, and working with the city. Certainly, we could work with the city if we wanted to move those signs further away from the area so they'd be more effective to slowing down near Village Drive and our driveway. We could certainly work with the city to try to relocate those further back if that was the case. Did that answer your question?
No, that's helpful. And my other question is, has there been any concerns? I know there's this center turn lane, which, from my knowledge within the city of Marlborough is not a common traffic pattern, right, that people would be familiar with. I'm curious if there is concern that people would use that as a U-turn kind of lane, that they would go into the lane to try to reverse direction, and that could also cause conflict without a light, both at the Village Drive entrance, as well as the proposed development, since people would maybe think they could, swerve a little bit quickly and then someone's coming right out. Has that been thought of, or ways to mitigate that given the traffic pattern?
So I think with any change in traffic pattern, there'll be a learning curve for the users of the corridor. But 3-lane sections are pretty common. I think people know how to use those sections of roadway. The other part, in terms of U-turn, there's not enough. So if you were in the center turn lane, there's not enough width to do a U-turn. It just, you'd have to do like a 3 or 4 point turn. It just wouldn't work. So it's not designed geometrically to allow U-turns to occur from that center turn lane.
Okay. The other concern I would raise would be, and I've seen this maybe in other areas, is people would turn in to then reverse direction. Is that something that would be discouraged so that people, would be, let's say they took, I'm thinking of the example on the third image that car, takes a right and then tries to reverse itself, given that ability to be in the driveway and then be in the 2 turning lanes. Would that be something that they're able to do? Is that something that would be discouraged, given it would probably be a quick turnaround and would just add to the backup because people would then use those 2 areas as a reversing direction as well?
I'm not quite sure your question, but I think that today people may turn right and go into a driveway and then turn around to do U-turn. I think with this type of section, that's less likely to occur because those difficult left turn movements can be made in those two phases where you can pull out into the center turn lane and then merge in. So those type of right turns and U-turns along the corridor will be reduced with these safety improvements that Mass DOT is proposing.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And I just want to also reiterate some of the concerns brought up earlier about the crosswalks and, you know, the mitigations to put in. I know like the flashing has been proposed. I am concerned about that as well, just given, as Councilor Landers mentioned, I've even been in some of those crosswalks that are like painted and people still don't stop. And so I'm wondering, you know, maybe there's additional ways, whether it's with the speed sign, to make sure that people do stop, because without a light, either people wouldn't use them and then they would cross where they think there's an opening. And that could be even more dangerous if they don't think that it's successful to use the crosswalk.
Well, certainly this is the safest design for the crossing here. So again, we've supplemented what Mass DOT proposed because we think this is appropriate and we think this is a significant safety enhancement over what's out there been proposed. If there was a significant amount of pedestrian crossings here, which I don't think they anticipate, then you could talk the next level of a traffic signal at a crossing, but I don't think the demand will be there for that type of mitigation.
Okay, that's very helpful. And my last question, which I don't see visible and it might be out of the scope of this project, but do we know based on the Mass DOT plan where the next closest crosswalk across Route 20 is located? Given the proximity of this to the project, I don't see another one visible that would go across.
Wilson Street. Yeah, probably at Wilson and Farm, I would imagine, but I don't know offhand.
Mr. DePercio, would you happen to know? I know you were on with us. If not, that's fine.
I am on, Madam Chair, but offhand, I don't know where that is. My guess would also be at the next signalized intersection at Farm Road, but I'm not sure. They tend to avoid mid-block crosswalks like this that aren't at intersections, so I'm guessing there isn't one between here and there, but I don't know for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was just bringing it up because I imagine, you know, if people wanted to cross somewhere else and it was too far for them to go to the crosswalk and there wasn't a light, what they would do. So I know that's not information that we have available, but I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. DePercio.
All right, any other questions, Councilor Perlman?
No further questions on the traffic. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers.
Yeah, I just have a question. I believe when Route 20 is done over, there's going to be sidewalks on both sides of Route 20. Maybe the city engineer would know that.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That being the case, you know, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic now because there's a lot from, you know, Wilson and Farm Road, you know, going west that draws people, you know, from Burger King to laundromat to a couple of restaurants to a daycare center. You know, the reason you can tell how much pedestrian walking there is, there's cow pasture along Route 20, where there's never been sidewalks, but you look along Route 20 on both sides, but particularly on the north side, you can see that people walk. And when it's really noticeable, when it's snow piles and they're walking out on Route 20. So you talk about, you know, throwing a crosswalk so people can get from the north side to the south side. I mean, that's an accident waiting to happen. The bottom line is, and this is what galls me about the state. You know, I look at what they did down in Sudbury. For years, the Raytheons in Sudbury, they had a police officer directing traffic in and out. As soon as they put up a few restaurants and stores, boy, they have traffic lights like you can't believe. So what's the difference? This is economic development for us. Whether we put in a 47,000 square foot retail place, which I don't think will ever go there. They had trouble squeezing 4 buildings in there. So if you're talking 47,000 1,000 square feet of retail that's probably just one story. But this is economic development. We have a tract of land, whether it's good land or bad land, of 25 acres. Does the state realize we're trying to do something with that land? What we've kind of decided is it takes care of some of our housing needs, takes care of our apartments. It's the type of community Marlborough is. So, I mean, the state might have all these rules and regulations, but, you know, do they know what we're trying to do? I know, I think we've brought it up at other meetings with them. But somehow, and as far as, you know, taking the chance, it would be a crapshoot, really, of, you know, taking a couple $100,000 now and putting it aside, thinking the state might do something 2 or 3 years from now when we've proven. I could come up with a statement, but I won't. But how do you prove to the state that you do need a traffic light? So I think the bottom line is, if we want this to be a good project, a good, safe project, all right, we're not even close. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, Councilor Ossing.
Councilor Ossing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess a comment and a suggestion, Madam Chair. So the comment centers around, you know, the enhancements. So you're all right, we can't get a traffic light right now. The funds could help, but it would be our job, if the project goes through, to push the state, get our representatives and our senator to push it. Can it be done? Absolutely. It's just how much intestinal fortitude do we want to apply to our regulators or our legislators to get it done. So it can be done, all right? I don't know if you've all had the time, well, before I go to the next one, if we don't do it, or if this is not approved and something does come in, whether it's 47,000 or a Burger King decides to relocate, there's nothing there is no traffic light, there is no radar, there is no signals for crosswalks, none of that's there, because we can't impose that. What you have as councilors is the opportunity to impose some of those conditions on a project that you think is beneficial to the city. If you don't think the project's beneficial to the city, then it makes your decision really simple. Madam Chair, I would suggest, since we just got correspondence from the city engineer, the police chief, and the fire chief, and Priscilla, you can wait till you actually get to the actual special permit, I would recommend reading it, because I don't know if the councils have had a chance to read it, and I know the public does not know it's out there, but I think their comments are extremely insightful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Ossing. Actually, my plan was to kind of incorporate their comments. Since a few of them are with us, I thought maybe if they wanted to speak rather than me read them, my plan was to incorporate so the riders within the special permit so that we could have her suggestions as we go through. If it is the committee's wish, I will change that and we can actually let Commissioner DePercio speak first. He can sort of go over his suggestions. And then I believe we have the police chief on. He can talk about his letter and I can read the one from the fire chief because he's not with us. So that's okay with everybody? Mr. DePercio, if you would like to begin with the letter or just everybody has a copy. Do you want to read it or just go over it?
Whatever you would like me to do, Madam Chair.
Would you prefer I just read your letter?
Sure, I think that would be a good way to go.
All right, so it is addressed to Councilor Roby, Urban Affairs Committee. I offer the following comments on the traffic-related issues. The main aspect of my review and comments to date have been centered on making sure the applicant's engineers have evaluated and selected the safest location for the site access driveways. My recommendation has been to limit the access to one main driveway and that it be located such that potential conflicts with other driveways in the area are minimized. There have been several different access designs proposed to date. In the current proposal, there is one main entrance to the site across from Village Drive and a west driveway for emergency vehicles only. I believe that this is the safest and best access configuration for the project. As discussed at the last meeting of the committee, the need for a traffic signal is determined by certain specific criteria set forth by the Federal Highway Administration signal warrants. The applicant's traffic engineer has analyzed each of the warrants and has determined that in spite of the difficulty to make left turns onto the roadway at certain times of day, none of the criteria for a signal are met by the project. I have reviewed their warrant analysis and am in agreement with that conclusion. Nevertheless, the applicant has proposed a mitigation payment to the city in the amount of $200,000 for the construction of a signal should it be determined by Mass DOT to be warranted in the future or for other improvements along this portion of the roadway. The applicant has also proposed to make the following traffic improvements as part of the project: radar speed signs on each side of the roadway near the project, and flashing beacons at the nearby crosswalk. These are good proposals. The radar speed signs have been proven to be effective in reducing vehicle speed, and the flashing beacons are definitely necessary at the proposed mid-block crosswalk. I plan to request input from Mass DOT on these proposals and the proposed signal mitigation funding during the site plan review process. With the reduction of the project from 4 buildings to 3, the revisions to the site access design, the proposed traffic improvements, and mitigation payments now being proposed, the applicant has made significant concessions and a genuine effort to address the city's concerns as they relate to traffic. In my view, they have been adequately satisfied. I have reviewed the revised draft special permit decision condition number 8 and am in agreement with the language therein. I plan to attend your meeting and happy to answer any questions on the above. Thank you, Thomas DePercio Jr., City Engineer. So as was stated by Commissioner Falk, and as was gone through with the drawings, all of the things that he commented on been discussed. But if you have further comments, Mr. DePercio, or if anybody has specific questions for him, we'll take that opportunity now.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I guess I would just say that I'm in agreement with the councilor's concerns, and I'm well aware of the issues about making left turns onto Boston Post Road East. I live on Concord Road and have been doing it for almost 30 years. So, and really the same can be said for all the properties along the corridor and the driveways as far as exiting those driveways. And I guess I'm just coming from a place, as Councilor Ossing just outlined, the city, the council, or myself wouldn't have any opportunity to make any improvements or get a mitigation payment to go to Mass DOT with, as part of a by right development. I think that's an important consideration here.
Questions for Mr. DePercio?
Councilor Roby, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the letter and your comments at the end of that, Mr. DePercio, as far as left turns onto this area. You know, it seems that we're hamstrung here as far as getting a left turn. To be honest, a couple of weeks ago, I actually reached out to Representative Gentile about this situation. I was wondering if he could reach out to the state DPW and find out if anything could be done at the state, because he did appear in the public hearing, expressed opposition because of traffic, and I wanted to talk to him and say, well, what can the state do? His response was effectively, well, it depends upon what the city recommends. And if the letters from Mr. DePercio basically says, you know, it doesn't trigger the warrant, then we're stuck. You know, we can't get something, you know, how can we get something going when they go back to the city and the city's saying, oh, you guys say that you don't need a light? So I'm not sure how to handle this, to be honest. Because everyone's saying, oh, a light should be there, a light should be there, but we can't put a light there. Why? Because our hands are tied. This makes no sense. So how can we move forward with this to make seriously propose a light and not just have it fall on deaf ears? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else with questions for Mr. DePercio?
I just have a point of information. This is Councilor Perlman.
Councilor Perlman?
I just wanted to share that Representative Gentile is also on the call, just in case it's helpful. Just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
He is on the call. He is considered a member of the public, and so if you would like to send information to the council, he did speak public hearing, that's true. I would think that his comment on what the council wants is if we approve this and push for a light, that he would support that. Not that we just raise our hands and say there's nothing we can do. And I believe that that's what has been pointed out by Attorney Falk and other people that I've talked to. So I'm going to read the letter from Chief Georgie, and he is also on if anybody has questions or if he has further comments. So good morning, Councilor Roby, members of the Urban Affairs Committee. My comments regarding this project focus primarily on the traffic-related issues. I would agree with City Engineer Tom DePercio's opinion that the current location of the main entrance exit is the best of the offered configurations for engineering purposes. I would also agree that the applicant's proposal to offer flashing radar speed signs on each side of the road, as well crosswalk beacons, could significantly enhance the safety of this part of Route 20. It is my understanding that the proposed Mass DOT redesign project in the coming years will improve sidewalks and allow for pedestrian traffic in the area, and any added safety features which will benefit vehicles and pedestrian traffic should be welcomed. During site plan review, the members also discussed the second emergency entrance exit for the site, which is proposed to be on the western end of the parking lot. We did discuss how best to restrict access through this driveway and how to keep it for emergency vehicles only. In my opinion, this could best be accomplished through clear signage to designate this driveway for use by emergency vehicles only and not for use by the general public. I think that installing multiple signs on each side of the entrance and exit would be more beneficial and practical. There was discussion about installing a gate or chain to prevent everyday use by residents or the public, but I would suggest that this type of barrier will defeat the purpose of providing emergency access for police, fire, or EMS. I too plan on being accessible for the meeting and can provide comment should any questions arise. Thank you, David A. Georgie. So I guess, Chief Georgie, I do have a question because the proposed language within the special permit does specifically say that there would be a gate. If I can find what page it's on, a gate that met the, and with access or gating system approved by the fire department during site plan review. And I know in discussion at the committee meetings and just my own personal opinion, if that driveway is not blocked, cars will go in and out of it, regardless of any signs that are there. So my preference is to keep the language in the special permit that it would be gated, in the hopes that that really would be what's done. So Chief Georgie, if you have comments now.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I understand that, and I know we've discussed, the same kind of situation at other projects as far as having an emergency fire access or emergency vehicle access. And my only concern with that sometimes is that if the police department or the fire department or EMS is trying to get into a facility in a expedited fashion, it can be tough when it's gated, or it's chained, or somebody has to get out and open it. That's really my concern with that. So my understanding was that maybe if we put signs on each side as you exit the project or as you're trying to enter the project to say emergency vehicle access only, no unauthorized use, or something along those lines that could kind of prevent regular traffic, but also keep it open for emergency vehicles if they had to use it.
I apologize. I was going to look it up. I know that I was reminded of a special permit that the council approved with a breakaway gate and a condo on in the city. So I know that they do exist and there is language. My preference would be to keep this language. I would hope that the committee, city council would agree with that, and then in site plan you would meet the specifications of the language. So that's where I'm coming from. I don't know if anybody else has questions or comments.
Madam President, Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers.
Now that we have Chief Georgie here, I was wondering, Chief, if one of your cruisers, and the fire chief's not here, but if engine 3 was coming down Route 20, getting into the project, might want to enter that entrance? If they were familiar enough with the layout, the 3 buildings, might they, when they're heading down to the, because a lot of the calls would come from, downtown area, would they use that entrance to enter? Certainly engine 3 might be, if it was the first building as you enter there. So that being the case, I guess I would prefer that you don't gate it. You do have signs that it's for, emergency use only, but it would enable a cruiser, an ambulance, or engine 3, or any other fire truck to enter the site there, rather than go down to the main gate, especially if there was an episode at the main gate or something. So I'd be very careful about putting a gate there. Does that make sense, or does it make a big difference, Chief?
No, Council Landers, that's exactly what I'm referring to. I would think that leaving it open, a cruiser or a fire truck could enter that way if they had to. Or if there was a problem at the main entrance and they could not get in, that would be another entrance for them to use.
Madam Chair?
So I would agree with you, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure who's speaking.
Madam Chair, Councilor Ossing.
Councilor Ossing.
I'm looking at the wording, and the wording says with an access or gating system. So again, I will tell you I am not a lawyer, but access to me would mean it could be signage. And again, I would leave that to the fire department. I mean, we can all say we like or don't like gating systems, but that's not our responsibility. I'd leave that to the professionals, just my opinion. Those wordings to me allows it, if they want access, they can put signs up. If they want gates, they can have it gated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Ossing. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
Yeah, it's a question for Mr. Georgie. So we have a lighting system in the city right now so that if there's an emergency system, the lights always go in favor of the emergency vehicles, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, is it possible to hook up a gate to that system? Granted, it'll go up as false alarms whenever the car, emergency vehicle goes by, but if they need to get in there, the gate's open because it's part of the emergency access. If it doesn't, so something, use technology, not necessarily a key, but might be able to get the better of both worlds on this.
I'm not sure if that's possible, to be honest with you. I might ask Tom DePercio, he might know, but I think those lights are set off of traffic lights, to be honest with you. So I think those, the Opticom, or what they were called, the Opticom, when the cruiser's lights are on, that trips the traffic light to open it, if that's what you're referring to, something like that. So I think that's set actually on a traffic light.
Right, I'm wondering if the same technology can be applied to a gate. I mean, this is an available technology question.
It's something we could investigate, though.
Right, yeah. I'm just thinking that might be a way to get through this, if it happens.
Okay. If I could interject on the discussion of the gates, Chief Georgie, are you familiar with the subdivision or the property that has the breakaway gate? It's my understanding that the fire truck just drives right through it.
No, Madam Chair, I'm not. I'm not sure which property that is, but if we do have one, we could look into it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to read Chief Green's letter. Good afternoon, Karen and City Councilors. I previously offered comments pertaining to this site which were related to density, traffic volume, and entrance and exit design features due to its location along Boston Post Road West, Route 20. I believe many of these issues have been lessened and the project as currently planned is far more suitable when compared to previous proposals. I also support the applicant's plan for flashing signs and any other means to communicate the need for driver and pedestrian safety. Finally, one concern the applicant might want to answer is related to snow removal storage. And I don't know, Attorney Falk, if you want to touch on that briefly. I know this would be a discussion in site plan to clarify exactly where you're doing snow storage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our site plan shows some snow storage area, and we've got a condition in the draft special permit. It essentially says if snow storage interferes with parking, we take it off site.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments? I know Chief Green is not on the call, but comments, questions from anybody? Okay. That leaves us with the comments from Priscilla Ryder that are impacted in the actual special permit. So I believe it's time to dive into this. It is 8 o'clock, so I don't know how long people want to go. My hope is that we can get through it and then have some discussion. I guess the first brief change on page 1 is that it's switched from Wayside to Waypoint Residential, and the address has been corrected to 339 Boston Post Road. We get to page 3, Storm, Water, and Erosion Control Management, where we have the comments from Priscilla Ryder. There she is adding in after the sentence that ends with erosion control management, the following: the applicant shall also hire an independent erosion control expert. There would be a comma, and the capital "this" becomes a lowercase, and it would continue the sentence with "this individual's credentials shall be acceptable to the engineering division of the city's Department of Public Works and the Conservation Commission." Then on page 4, she is adding to the last sentence in this, deleting the sentence completely. Comments or questions for Ms. Ryder on her recommendation for amendments to number 5, stormwater and erosion control? Nope.
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry?
Motion, it's Councilor Doucette, Madam Chair. Motion to approve the changes for item C by Ms. Ryder.
C5, all right. It has been moved and approved. We can take individual votes on these if that is the wish of the committee, so that we know that they are incorporated. So I'm going to do a roll call vote on adding in to C5 the comments from Priscilla Ryder. Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner votes yes.
Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin votes yes.
Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers votes yes.
And Councilor Roby votes yes. So thank you. We will continue with other changes that have been recommended by the applicant. He's adding a new number 8, or language to 8, where it's now called site access and roadway improvements. There's a new A. Use shall access Route 20 with a single driveway entrance located directly opposite Village Drive. The applicant shall provide an emergency access driveway off of Route 20 on the western side of the plan with an access or gating system approved by the fire department during site plan review.
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Yes.
instead of just the fire department, should it be more broader, like emergency services? As far as it being approved by? Does the police have a say? Or is it just gonna be the fire?
Site plan review consists of both. I think probably the fire department would be the one that would have to deal with the gate more than the police. But I
just in a terminology, should it be emergency services versus just the fire department? That was just a clear.
Just removed by the fire department and just approved during site plan review. So it doesn't specify a specific department.
That would be fine. If
Is that
the rest of the chair agrees.
by the applicant? Does it sound okay?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
So approved during site plan review. So we're deleting by the fire department. All right. So then we have the beginning paragraph from the original becomes B. And we're deleting a sentence at the end of that said the applicant shall conduct a traffic signal warrant analysis to be submitted for review as part of the site plan review process. And we're adding in new C, in addition to the planned improvements to Route 20, the applicant shall coordinate with Mass DOT and the engineering division of the Department of Public Works to add the following traffic calming improvements in the vicinity of the site. Number 1, a radar speed limit sign on the southern side of Route 20 to the west of Victoria Lane. 2, a radar speed sign on the northern side of Route 20 to the east of Village Drive. And 3, rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the proposed sidewalk over Route 20 in the vicinity of the site. And I will go back and clarify or reiterate that it says they will coordinate with Mass DOT where those are going. We're going to add they're adding a new D. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant, its successors and/or assigns shall provide a payment to the City Council or its designee in the amount of $200,000 to be used by the City Council or its designee towards the study, design, and construction of a traffic signal at the intersection Route 20, Village Drive, and the site's main entrance, provided, however, that if the Massachusetts Department of Transportation does not authorize said traffic signal within 3 years following the issuance of a final certificate of occupancy for the use, then the funds may be used by the City Council or its designee for the study, design, and construction of comparable transportation safety improvements in the vicinity of the site, for beautification improvements along Route 20 in the vicinity of the site, or another project designed to improve transportation and aesthetics along Route 20 in the vicinity of the site.
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you. So this is the NUD. If we could, if this could be worded stronger to specify that the council really recommends a light needs to be here, and I'm not sure how to word that well, but I think that's important. I think part of it also is, the 3-year scenario following the issuance of the final certificate. I don't mind seeing that go to 5 or 10 years if that's what is necessary, because I still have a hard time approving this project without there being a traffic light, or at least a likely a likely approval of the traffic site for this area. And I'm willing to say that, the condition of this project is on this light. I'm not sure if we can word that in such a way that, because it's out of our hands as well as the developers, how to actually word that properly.
Maybe we could get some help from Attorney Falk, or we have a solicitor, but my understanding is this reads, prior to the issuance of the building permit, the city will receive a check. Once we get that check, then it's a condition of the special permit. There are multiple conditions. If all of the conditions are met, the building commissioner will issue the building permit and construction can start. The
Madam
rest
Chair,
of this is very specifically for how long that money sits there before we could use it for something else.
Madam Chair, Councilor Ossing.
Councilor Ossing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what may help Councilor Doucette and some of the other concerns of the council is it might be beneficial for us to put a resolution together asking the state and pushing our representatives and senator to push for the light. I mean, you know, if you're worried about how to get the city on record, you know, we come up with a resolution that says, hey, dear state, and then we all call and pester. If you want a light there, we can get a light there. It's just gotta, it's this hard word. It's effort on our part, right? The state's just not gonna go do it. We gotta go sit there and pound the table and say we want a light there, all right? Because you go to Sudbury, they've got 2 lights that are less than 50 feet apart going into Lavenders and whatever the place on the other side is. 50 feet, 2 traffic lights.
You are correct, and thank you. That was going to be a suggestion that I made. I think that that kind of discussion among the committee happens pending approval of this special permit.
Madam Chair, Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I admire the council president's optimism about us advocating for the light. I hope that is true. I've sadly seen strong efforts fail in the past when it comes to getting our friends at the state level to be able to move and do some of these things, you know, to frustration on my own behalf and as well as some others. That said, you know, I'm not sure that, you know, changing the window to 3 years to 5 years to 10 years, as Councilor Doucette suggested, you know, I personally have an issue just approving it without it being a commitment, and I know that's a challenge, and you know, I would certainly support a resolution to advocate for that. I just, you know, to be able to say yes to this and then not have it in hand is a concern. So I'm not sure that on this particular portion of on section D, whether or not we need to change the time window, in my opinion.
Madam Chair, I would echo that as well. The only way that this would work is somehow, again, if we want to go down that road first, get a light in, and then approve the project, that would be the only way, because all we discussed is maybes, ifs, if we work really hard. And the fact is, the answer could be no, and you can't unbuild this project once it's built. So I can't emphasize this enough. There's no way, I don't care what kind of additional language you put on that, without that, there's no way I can support that, because that's what it really comes down to, right? That the ifs, we could do this and a resolution, and none of that guarantees a light, and you can't unbuild the project. So just want to emphasize that without that kind of certainty, you can change the years and anything else around this, it still doesn't change the core fact.
Thank you. So are you okay leaving it as it is, Councilor Doucette?
I'd like to hear what the other council members have to say.
Anybody have response? I don't see any hands. And I can't see in the chamber, so you'll have to speak.
Okay, how about this? Let's do a vote. Motion to change the number of years to 5 years versus 3. Do a vote, see what happens.
Is there a second for the motion?
Point of clarification, are we voting on whether this is relevant, or are we really voting on whether it's 3 years or 5 years?
It would only be voting whether or not it's 3 years or 5 years.
Is there a second on Councilor Doucette's motion to change 3 to 5? All right, there's no second. We will continue with more of the special permit. Number 9 is transportation alternatives. We are amending, the applicant is amending section B to read, prior to applying for a building for the use, the applicant, its successors and/or assigns shall submit a request to the Metro West Regional Transit Authority to add a bus stop in the vicinity of the site and its neighboring residential properties. We have number C with some additions. So it will read, the applicant, its successors and/or assigns shall sponsor a program for the site's residents to encourage shared trips and carpooling to reduce vehicle trips to and from the site, and shall submit an annual report on this program to the building commissioner on or before January 30th during each year that the use remains in operation. And I don't believe he is with us. Commissioner Cook had said he was going to be on this as a phone call, unless he's one of the numbers that I can't really tell who he is. So Commissioner Cook, if you were here, you had some points that you made.
Madam Chairperson?
Yes, Commissioner Cook. All right, would you like to discuss?
Yes, Commissioner Cook, I've been here, I'm having trouble with internet, but I'm on the phone.
All right, so you and I had a discussion on number C. If you would like to point out your concerns.
Yes, number C. All the other items I have the ability, because everything is done prior to the building permit. So if things are not completed, they do not get the building permit. Number C is after the effect. So if the applicant does not provide me with the report by January 30th, or they decide not to sponsor a plan or just say they haven't done anything, what is my enforcement going to be? Are we going to pull the special permit after this thing's already built and occupied? That's not going to happen. So I don't quite understand what the intent here is as to how I can enforce them to do a program, or if they just, that report comes back on January 30th saying we haven't done anything.
So if
I have no problem receiving this and monitoring it, but what do I do for enforcement?
Thank you, and I will just jump in. I know that our discussion was that although having a program would be beneficial, I'm not sure that it really is necessary to have the language in the special permit. Do you have comments to make, or if other councilors feel that this specificity is necessary?
Madam Chair, what I might add, I mean, the thought here was that the program might not be developed until the site is further along and management is in place, but Building Commissioner Cook raises a good point that he'd be waiting on reports to come to find a zoning violation. So perhaps we could amend this to say that a draft of the program or a summary of the program will be provided prior to the issuance of a building permit. That way he knows that we've got something in place that we're thinking of, and then the annual reports would come after that.
Madam Chairperson, Jeffrey Cook, that is acceptable.
So the fact that you would have a draft report, the fact that you would get the annual reports, if you didn't get them, is there an issue for repercussion?
That is the point is the enforcement of it if they don't provide it. What is the enforcement action?
All right, so I guess I will bring this to the committee. How important is it to the committee that they sponsor a program to encourage shared trips and carpooling? Anybody on the committee?
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
I think this is one of those good faith things that, as Mr. Cook explains, that if there's no teeth to enforce it, there's nothing that does anything. I mean, you know, I'm not sure if there's anyone else in the city that would actually review this, but it'd be something that, you know, I think it's important that we do it so that they recognize we take this seriously, but again, the issue is what do we do without the teeth? So I'd rather keep it in, at least for the time being. And at some point we need to figure out if, depending upon what the results are, what happens with this. So.
May, if I may, violation of a special permit condition is a zoning violation, so subject to zoning enforcement. There are a number of different tools that at Mr. Cook's disposal when a special permit condition isn't being followed. Daily fines, ticketing, declaratory judgment, any number of things that could be done. I understand that this condition might not be one that would rise to that level, but you know, we thought it was important to put forward. I think if we amend the beginning of the sentence to note that we'll put a draft forward as part of our pre-building permit package, then the annual reporting is you know, provides the enforcement mechanism. If the report doesn't come in, we're in violation and we need to correct it.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you are going to add in, prior to applying for a building permit for the use, the applicant, its successors and or assigned shall sponsor a program for the site's residents and encourage shared trips, carpooling. Maybe make a period. The applicant shall submit a draft report.
I would say a summary of the program. Because it wouldn't be a report, we wouldn't have had done it yet, but it would be a summary of what the program is that we're looking to implement.
So would that go instead of, we'll submit a summary of a program?
Yes.
Summary of a program for the site's residents, and then would submit annual reports afterwards?
Right, once the program's up and running.
Each year that the use remains in operation. All right, so does that work for you, Commissioner Cook?
Yes, it does, Madam Chairperson.
All right, is that okay with the rest of the committee to make that clarification?
I'm fine with that, Madam Chair.
Everybody else okay?
Yep.
All right, we get to number 10, open space. And this is where we get more input from Priscilla Ryder. She is adding in a lot of language. I will start with the sentence that begins, the form of the conservation restriction over the restricted land shall be approved by the city solicitor and the city conservation officer prior to the issuance of a building permit. Final approval of the conservation restriction must be approved by the Conservation Commission, City Council, and finally signed by the mayor before being approved by the State Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, period. And delete the and then the next sentence would start, the conservation restriction and change shall to must be granted and recorded prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for any unit within the use, and deleting or at a later time agreed to in writing by the city conservation officer, and adding in the conservation restriction will allow for the moving and management of CR Area 1 to enhance wildlife habitat and meadow Conservation Commission, and shall allow for the passive recreational use of CR Area 1. In B, she is deleting the word and cyclist so that the recreational trail would be for pedestrians along the city-owned sewer land adjacent to the city to provide public access, deleting to the restricted land and connections between Route 20 and the site's neighboring residential properties, adding in the words and Kane School.
Madam Chair, Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin.
Just a quick clarification as we were going through that, and just for people watching at home, it sounded like you said allow for the moving and management of portions, and I think that's mowing and management of portions.
You are right. Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know how to read my own handwriting. That it is mowing. All right, do we want to take another vote on the input from Priscilla Ryder?
Madam Chair, Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers.
Okay, without putting Priscilla on the spot, I need a little clarification. Here's 2 parcels of land. One is a little over 5 acres, and the other is over 8 acres. Now, I'm not opposed to conservation, all right, but I know they're a little, somewhat of a distance back from Route 20. But I guess, Priscilla, my concern here, will these be good-looking parcels? I mean, you know, I think it's, I'm not looking for a lush lawn or something, but what will these 2 parcels look like, either from the people looking out from the apartment complex, or if we have trails, you know, along the sewer line or something? I mean, will they be maintained, or is it just, you know, I know, you know, when I look at certain projects in town, you know, I like the whole thing to kind of look good. What will these parcels look like, Priscilla? Can you kind of tell me? Passive recreation, is that, you know, you're going to have a hayfield there and cut it once a year? You know, I'd rather, I mean, I like animals, I like wildlife, but I'd rather have this would be parcels of land that the residents or neighbors could play there. I guess what I'm getting at, when I go around different towns, I was thinking I was down in Hingham quite a bit this fall, and there was a big complex that went up right on one of the main streets in Hingham there, and the builder or the developer put a couple nice soccer fields there, and they were well maintained. There was a unit there that was a refreshment stand with men's rooms and stuff like that. So I guess when I see 13 acres, almost half of the whole parcel of land, you know, I guess maybe it was necessary for conservation, and maybe there's all kinds of water pipes underneath. But who benefits by this? I know conservation is important, and don't get me wrong, but I guess I'd rather see these 13 acres have some use for human beings. Can you help me out why I'm wrong?
Councilor Landers, thank you, Mr. Kerrigan, for putting up the photo. I know my plan was to go to Priscilla Ryder. She had submitted this with her information. I believe she had a conversation with Attorney Falk today because there may be the potential to add a 3rd conservation area. She also had some wishes for increasing the conservation restriction area 1. So with that, I'm going to let Ms. Ryder speak, and maybe we can do some back and forth between her and Attorney Falk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is Priscilla, and so the red line on this plan, so there's so that's conservation area 1, and that would be a conservation restriction, restricts the land from further development, and the restrictions are laid out in the conservation restriction as to what can happen and what can't happen. The applicant, when they came for the Conservation Commission, did talk about there's a field in the back, and the idea was that meadows are disappearing, are a disappearing habitat, so they were willing to maintain sort of the middle part of that, sort of the inside of the track, to have it not grow up into a woods, but to keep it a portion of that into a meadow. And then they would have a walking path that would be to the benefit of the residents there and their dog park. And so those things could be included in the conservation restriction, but the restriction basically takes the building rights out of the land and allows them to use it in certain ways. and then the conservation area 2, which is the one with the honeycomb color or pattern on it, is really a wooded wetland right now. It's very, very steep to get down there. Tom DePercio and I did walk the sewer line where the trail would go to sort of see how accessible that would be, and it's really, really steep. So we decided that it's open space. It's wooded. There's no real use for that, because it's mostly wet in the floodplain area. So that would sort of be left on its own. But then the trail that went from Route 20 to Felt Street would be a walking trail, and that's actually a pretty nice trail. There's quite a few people that use it because it's a well-used trail at the moment. It would just sort of be a woods trail that would go across. It does get to a point where it comes down to gets close to Kane School, and we talked to Tom DePercio and I talked to the school department, and they would be very happy to have an access there so that the kids who could walk to school from the various where this trail would connect would allow that. And to your question, Councilor Landers, I mean, the idea would be to let it be natural, but there is that walking trail around it, and there could be some, I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and so the natural system is certainly beautiful in its own way. So, and I don't know if Attorney Falk has any other comments on that.
I think what I heard you say, it's beautiful in its own way. And I'm not sure if the council agrees with that. I know you have your conservation group, and I know it's good to have green space, all right? But in a way, half this parcel is never going to be really fully utilized. And as I mentioned before, we have so little land in Marlborough. I mean, I know we have, I guess if this is on Broad Meadow, or this is on Stowe Road, further down Concord Road, I wouldn't be having this conversation now. But here's a parcel of land on Route 20, that goes right across the United States. Route 20 is a post road, all right? And I don't think we're doing enough with it. We're taking a parcel of land, we're throwing up 3 buildings, taking 5 acres, but I'm not so sure that I like the idea of, just passive recreation on Route 20, a pathway that won't be kept up. I checked the one out at the, that goes from Tellier over to Apex, and I'm not sure if it's ever used, So, I mean, how does the council feel? How does some of the members feel about this parcel of land being set aside for, on Route 20 now, on conservation and passive recreation? Could it be better used? Do we need more?
Councilor Roby, Councilor Ossing.
Councilor Ossing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll give you my thoughts, Councilor Landers.
Okay.
If the special permit does not go through and something else goes in.
No, I don't want to build anything else.
I
don't want to build anything.
Hang on, I got the floor. Hang on one second.
Okay, you just want to
you can respond.
that.
Nothing can get built there anyway.
Yeah.
All those areas that you see highlighted or circled around there, no one can build. The only thing that you can see built is where those 4 buildings are, which are now 3. That's it. That's the only thing that can be built. The opportunity with the special permit is the city now can control and say, we want the applicant to deed or conservation restrict or whatever to us. If somebody else gets it and builds it with no special permit from the council, I don't know, it's not going to be our property. It's their property. They can let it grow ugly, but we're not going to go out and mow all that stuff. It's just not conducive to it. And Priscilla and Tom can back me up, but we're not going to. Having that trail where the sewer line is, if we wanted to maintain that, I guess I'm okay with that, but, you know, what you heard in the initial public comments was, the world's coming to an end, we're taking away all the green space. Well, we're not. That's not the case here. That stuff we get to protect with a special permit. We don't get to protect, and it'll still be green, but who knows what the applicant will do with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
What I wanted to be green, I think it's important to get this out, because I think there's other people that feel this way. That
Landers, I'm going to interrupt you. I
green.
think you've had your say. I'm going to see if any other councilors want to have any input on this.
I wasn't three.
Councilor Wagner?
Madam Roby, this is my ward, so I feel very strongly, and this is the part of the city that I've lived in for 30 years, and that this, that the vote, the level of what engagement in our community has been that this part of town likes the green space, and the idea of green space, it doesn't have to be mowed and kept. This is something that's considered beautiful on this side of town. We love this, and these open meadows are very important. And I think the comment was raised about how does it benefit people? Well, it benefits people because of the whole ecosystem, and meadows help contribute to. We have the collapse of the bee population, so this kind of land is crucial. And I want to respect also, was raised, okay, something else might come in here, but it's still protected by state regulation. So it's protected land. So I think that's very important to remember. Someone else could buy this, but they still can't build on this land. And keeping it natural and as is deeply appreciated by some, but me and others in this part of the city where we live. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councilors on the committee?
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
So I'll reply to Councilor Landers, because him and I have had these discussions going back and forth for a while. Specifically with the proposed conservation area restriction 2, it's landlocked, it's watershed, it's wetlands, it really can't be developed. If it's part of a conservation restriction area, we can put in issues like, the owner shall manage and address invasive species into this area, such as bittersweet, any of the other types of plants that are coming in and taking over those areas. So I think that there is stuff, this can be a managed property and still be trees. It can still be an open space. I mean, I've been living here in Marlborough for about 30 years myself, but where I grew up, I had lots of forests behind me, and it's nice to have trees around and places to go in the middle of a city or a town. So this would be good to, no one can develop this space because it's wetlands. It's a swamp. It is landlocked because of the sewer line. We're just putting some hooks in here to make sure it's managed well and it doesn't, fall into, overgrown invasive species. I think that's my biggest concern with this, but thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I just want to, Councilor Land, just a couple more points.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you because I think I want to let other councilors speak. You asked a question. We would want to give them an opportunity to respond. So any other councilors who have input for Councilor Landers?
Madam Chair, Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I do think that having this land as in its natural habitat and open for passive recreation is a good use. It's a tribute really to the hard work that Priscilla and her team have put forth in the city and the trail development that we have gone through, where we provide people with a lot of connections and a lot of different ways to get out and see the city from different sides, and to be able to have a natural habitat, I think, is important. If it did become a purposed open space land, I do have some concerns about how we would handle an influx of visitors as well. If it were something else, I think that would provide additional problems if it became a soccer field or some other purpose. But I do think that the connection from the neighborhoods out to that part of Route 20, and then vice versa, is a good way to leave it and ensure that it is kept up, not abandoned, but kept up in that manner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Then I'm just going to.
Madam Chair, Councilor Perlman. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to quickly agree. I really think keeping it in its natural state is Really in line with a lot of the other conservation properties around the city. I really do appreciate the trail and having the access point to the Keene School. I think that's just another added value of some of the conservation lands across the city. And it would be something for residents in that area to access, especially given if there's a lot of obviously housing units and school children that live in that area, which typically wouldn't have access to some sort of open space or trail. This would be a really great option for them. And so I other questions around parking and all of that, if people were going to go there, but it seems like this would be for people who would want to maybe walk from another location because of the sidewalks and be able to access it. So I do really appreciate all the work of Priscilla and her team as well, and think that they've done a good job ensuring that this trail and the area is preserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Orem, do I see you wanting to?
Yes, I had a question. So I've heard the fact that if indeed this project doesn't go through, there could be other uses for the property, obviously. We've heard that through the whole discussion. The question I have is on this conservation land. And I think I heard it correctly that if this applicant doesn't decide on this project's not approved by the city council, what can happen to that land? Is there something that can happen outside what we're seeing right now?
I'm going to give this to Ms. Ryder. I believe she would probably be the.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the wetland area would be protected because it can't be impacted. So the area within the inside of that of the walking trail is definitely wet, and then obviously where the wetland is on the other side of the sewer line is all wet. So there's no development that could happen there. So really, the only area that could be developed is where they're proposing right now.
Okay, and thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Priscilla. I was just curious. I wanted to hear it from someone, and I wanted just to say Councilor Wagner brought out a very good point about conservation land in Marlborough, and I know Councilor Perlman and I had actually had the opportunity to review some other property in Marlborough, which I never knew existed, down past there off Broadmeadow. But again, I can appreciate the need for conservation land in Marlborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors with comments or questions? Or comments, I guess. All right, I'm going to just do some quick comments to the specific question. I think I would agree with all of the comments made. We need to keep this as open space. How much it can be developed will be determined through that conservation restriction. But I don't want to see a kiosk. I don't want to see a ball field. I don't want to see anything going down there. It needs to stay as natural as possible, in my opinion. All right, so we're back to, unless anybody has any further discussion, back to voting on the specifics for number 10 for the additional comment from Priscilla Ryder.
Madam Chairman, Councilor Landers, I just want to, I guess, apologize to some people. I guess oftentimes I misunderstood. What I was trying to stress here, I know what Deloney Park looked like 35 years ago, when it was a rundown racetrack owned by a construction company. Look at Deloney Park today. It's our pride and joy. Look at McGee's property right now. I know what it looked like 50 years ago. All right, look at that now. Now, this is Route 20. You know, this is a road that people travel east-west coming from Boston. All right, why is it when we drive through Chelmsford and Lexington and Concord, in Hingham, in Duxbury, why do we, when we go along these routes, why do we say, oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that monument nice? Look at that duck pond. Look at those people sitting on the bench. You know, that's what I'm trying to stress people. You know, we're spending millions of dollars on Route 20 for what? I don't know, one of our councilors, they wanted single lane highways because traffic wouldn't go as fast and the stores would do better. What I wanted, what I'm trying to say, and not knocking anybody, I'd like every parcel of land along Route 20 look good. You know, let your natural land be down in Broadmeadow Road and Stowe Road and so forth like that. But Route 20, what's it go, across the country? Route 20, it's a route that's been in our history books for years. All you gotta do is follow, you know, George Washington and knock around. So I'm not trying to knock anything about conservation and let it be natural, but you let it be natural in the right places. But then what you do is you have your main routes look good. That's all I'm trying to say. So I'm not, you know, I'm a landscaper by hobby and by trade. I like nice things. I don't like everything well groomed. All right? But, you know, I'm not looking for what you almost have down McGee's right now. You know, it's not going to improve a hell of a lot. You got that one parcel of land, I even forget who owns that. That'll never be cleaned up. And then this particular project, I don't know, are they going to have route their section all the way from the storage place all the way to the end of the property? They're going to have it look nice? What I would like, you know, this McGee project to be a show place. All right? I don't want 50 feet from Route 20, you know, I don't want the bunny rabbits running around and the raccoons that are supposedly there and the coyotes and so forth, and they're there, but a lot of them head towards the reservoir. So what I was looking for, these parcel land, 13 acres, that's about half the whole parcel. You know, passive recreation, great. And I'm not saying you're going to get out there with a lawnmower or have cleanup day, all right? But I thought this was an opportunity to start making Route 20 look better than what it is now. You know, look at what they've done out at the courthouse. They did put a bandstand out there. And I know a couple of people that are going to hope to run a program this year. And I kiddingly say I won't get off the council until we have a walkway around Lake Williams, the way they do in Boston and Jamaica Plain and all these places. I mean, let's let the city, you know, look good. Let me put this, let's have the city look better. So I thought this was an opportunity, a parcel of land on Route 20, that we make it look the very best we can. And I'm not so sure if 13 acres or so, just leaving it basically the way it is, you know, gives the appeal, the curb appeal that I'd like to see. You know, maybe if we made that parcel look good, people, landlords along Route 20 would make some of their parcels look good. You know, check Sudbury, check Wheeling, right around. Go to other communities and see how nice. What they try to do is showcase their main street. And then in the country, you can do what the heck you want. I guess that's it.
Thank you, Councilor Landers. All right, so back to the input from Priscilla Ryder for number 10. Is there a motion to approve what she has suggested?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Attorney Falk.
Sure. The only thing I wanted to add was the provision that Priscilla Ryder suggested striking, language saying, or at a later time agreed to in writing by the city conservation officer. That's if we're at a point where, and I've done a number of CRs for some of my municipal clients, and they can take quite a while to get approved by the Commonwealth. I thought that option would be helpful so that if we're, you know, within a few weeks or a month or two of the CR being approved and able to be recorded, it wouldn't hold up the certificate of occupancy. Just flexibility. It doesn't have to be granted, but it provides some flexibility. And it's just from my own personal experience, the CR approval process can take quite a while. And it's not at the fault of the applicant or the city. The state reviewers can sometimes take quite a while to get these things done.
Ms. Ryder, do you have comment to that, or would you be okay with?
Yeah, I would be okay with that as long as we. I guess I was just trying to figure out the timing. but yes, I guess we can add that. We can add some language then that works, that sort of allows that flexibility.
Okay, so we at the last part of that sentence, or at a later time agreed to in writing by the city conservation officer.
Okay, that works.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
I would like to see something about the management of Conservation Area 2 as far as addressing invasive species. I don't want it to become covered with which
Madam
one
Chair?
I'm speaking.
This is Priscilla?
Yeah.
I guess those details can be worked out in the conservation restriction. So what can and cannot be done can be sort of outlined in that document.
Okay, so should there be a reference of Conservation Area 1 and Area 2 instead of just Area 1?
Yes, they should both be referenced, correct.
Okay.
I think he's mentioning specifically within the special permit. And my understanding in talking to you was the special permit has some specific language regarding only CR1 because of certain things that you want to be able to do, where CR2 would be left untouched, basically. So any kind of other things that wanted to be done would be in the conservation language, conservation restriction language versus in the special permit language.
That is correct.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, we'll be submitting a revised Exhibit B. There's supposed to be an exhibit. The exhibit you've been looking at is obviously the old version of the project with 4 buildings and a satellite parking area. That will certainly change. So that our Exhibit B will clarify CR1, CR2, make that very clear where those parcels are.
Okay.
As long as it's addressed, I'm comfortable with it then. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Was most
Councilor Roby, this is Steve Kerrigan. I'm sorry, but you just kind of cut out the last moment. If you could repeat what you just said, we didn't hear it here in the chamber.
I just said something very loud is going on. I wondered whoever was causing it to mute themselves. Maybe that's why you didn't hear me. It's gone now, so I think we're okay. All right, so I still need a motion to approve the language as amended, suggested by Ms. Ryder.
Motion to approve as amended item C, changes from Conservation Officer Priscilla Ryder.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the specific language? If none, we'll do a roll call again. Councilor Doucette?
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councilor Landers?
Councilor Landers votes no.
Councilor Navin?
Councilor Navin votes yes.
Councilor Wagner?
Councilor Wagner votes yes.
And Councilor Roby votes yes. So the addition of the language in number 10, open space, as recommended by Priscilla Ryder carries. So that gets us through the changes as recommended by the applicant. I think we've gone over this special permit with other things, but if there's anything else that the council wants to talk about that did not get amended, we can have that discussion now.
Councilor Roby, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you. One of the earlier drafts had references to water improvements, and it's not in this version. Mr. Falk, do you remember that, or am my memory deceiving me on this?
If I may, Madam Chair, Councilor Doucette, I think what you're referring to, there was a question about a water supply situation nearby, but the city engineer had clarified that it didn't pose a problem. I think that's what you're referring to.
Okay. Can I, through the chair, Madam,
Yes.
I ask this of the city engineer? He's still on?
DePercio, are you still there?
I'm still here, Madam Chair. I think, like Attorney Falk said, I believe what you're referring to is Mass DEP commented on the environmental notification form. One of their comments mentioned issues in the Spoon Hill water tank with residual chloride levels. That issue has been resolved. So that comment is no longer applicable. So I don't remember it being in a draft special permit, but if that's the issue you're referring to, that has been resolved.
Okay, I have heard from many people that there seems to be water pressure issues at that side of town. As development has happened more into the Ward 1 area, it seems that downstream in this area, the water pressure doesn't seem to be as good as it was before. So, and this ain't gonna make it any better. So, kind of late for that for now, but anyway.
All right, thank you. I was trying to look back through a couple of my copies that we've been using as we've met in meetings, and I do not see anything regarding that language.
Okay.
I have something back in October, but maybe in a prior, or I know it was originally discussed in conservation, so maybe that's where it came from. Anybody else with anything regarding the special permit that we haven't gone over? I'm sorry, did someone just say something? No, okay, so we have gone through this draft special permit as amended with the amendments recommended by Priscilla Ryder. What do we want to do now?
Madam Chair, if I could comment?
Councilor Wagner.
Thank you. I'm just amazed about the amount of work that has gone into this project, and I appreciate how hard everyone's working and the amount of just the hours that have gone into the permit and everything behind it. And I find myself, I'd like to raise this concern because I find myself, some of the things we're talking about are really around the edges when the core issue for me comes down to safety and the volume. At the end of the day, they were still talking about putting 140 units in across the street from a development where there's already concerns with entry and access to their facility. I've documented close to 200 people who have written me and called me, and that's just what I've documented. In the last couple of weeks alone, I frankly have the calls and the emails are coming in so frankly, so frequently, I haven't been able to update my list. And as I find myself thinking about, I'm hearing, and I appreciate the experts that have weighed in and think, and it's, City Engineer DePercio, I so appreciate your work and your expertise. And I found myself reflecting when you said that, like in your comment that you feel that the project has adequately addressed the city's concerns. I find myself thinking, this is in my ward, and when I think about the city, I'm thinking about my residents. And in no way, although I appreciate again the work gone into this project, in no way do any of these changes and adjustments address, when I think of the city, the residents' concerns. And I've also sat, now this is my first year on the city council, and we've talked for hours about the impact of light emanating from like a menu board sign and how that might impact the surrounding few homes. And I've been putting that into perspective of how we're talking about putting 140 units and all the people that comes with that across from a development. And so for me, it really comes down to no light, no development. And there's nothing I heard tonight that said, and it's not good enough, the possibility of a light, the maybe down the few, once it's built, it's there. And we're talking about impact on people's quality of life. And that long-term effects of as that continues to decline, the people that are already there aren't even going to be able to, the value of their property is going to go down, it's going to be hard to sell. So I raise these questions because it still, to me, is, I again appreciate all the work and I really like this project. I just wish it wasn't in this location. And I find myself sitting here, I feel like I'm sitting with the hundreds of residents who have called and emailed me and written me letters to express their concern about this development. And I would like to even take the step tonight to make a motion, because I feel like we're going to come at this again. We're going to make these revisions. How many more meetings are we going to have? There's nothing proposed tonight, for me personally, that I've heard that is going to change the fact that what I just described. And I would like to propose to make a motion. Perhaps I would like to have us vote on this tonight and really be definitive in this process. Are we really going to consider moving forward in this project? Or in fact, and again, I'm speaking from, this is my ward, the impact, I'm thinking about all the people and the quality impact, the detrimental impact on the quality of life that this has already had and what it's going to cause. And maybe this is a time for us to go ahead and take that vote.
Thank you, Councilor Wagner. I know you and I spoke earlier today. My original plan was, I knew that there would be lengthy discussion on both Ms. Ryder's comments and the additional redlined information, and that I would have liked to have one more meeting to have a clean copy for all of us to look at. However, I understand your concerns with wanting to bring some resolution to this. So I guess I would like to hear input from the rest of the voting members. Are you ready for a motion tonight? And then we would have a clean version that would eventually get, I guess the plan, if we vote tonight, would be, it would be reported out at our next meeting, which is February 8th. I would ask for a suspension to have it be sent to the solicitor to be put in proper legal form with a final vote of the council on the 22nd. Otherwise, we would not vote tonight and we would set up another meeting, which may still allow us to have a vote for the 8th of February. So other councilors, some input?
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette.
First is, I would like to give Mr. Falk a chance to speak before I do. I leave it up to you, Madam Chair, whether you want to do a round before we get the lawyer to respond.
Thank you. I didn't realize he had his hand up. So Attorney Falk, if you would like to make some comments, I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I would suggest is, it's my understanding that Urban Affairs is meeting again on Monday, February 1st. I know I have another application that's penciled in for that date. That's not far away. Still gives you time to make decisions in time for your next council meeting. I would suggest that perhaps the motion be tabled and the discussion resumed on Monday. That would give us time to further digest your comments and think about our path forward, but also give the council more time to absorb some of the comments they received from department heads just tonight. It would only be a few more days, and you have another meeting scheduled on Monday anyway.
Thank you, Attorney Fox. So are there comments from voting committee members?
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette again.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the clarification with that, Mr. Falk. But I also agree with Councilor Wagner. I think I made my views explicitly clear. I can support this with the light. I have a hard time, to support it without a light, considering the compounded situation that the traffic is in. And, you can look at the numbers, you can go through the numbers, and I still don't buy that it, as far as the warrant goes, then the warrant system is flawed. If in this situation it doesn't allow, you're going to have two major developments that are going to be across the street from each other. You would expect that to justify putting in a light. If that's not the case, then I'm not sure what the heck's going on. But I cannot support this without a light. I'll let the other councilors on the committee make their comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess at this point, I'm not asking how you would vote. I'm asking more whether you're ready to vote tonight or if you want to continue.
So then let me just make it clear. I could go either way. And to be honest, if I was going to vote tonight, it would be no. But I'm waiting to wait a week and see what happens and hear what the other ones have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other counselors?
Councilor Chairperson, Councilor Landers, you know, whether we vote tonight or Monday. What's that?
It's on. It's on.
Oh, whether we vote tonight or Monday night, you know, nothing has happened tonight that makes me change my mind about the lack of a light there. Yeah, you know what really galls me? The state is spending millions of dollars on straightening out, supposedly, from the Sudbury line to Peters Ave, which isn't a problem. We have other problems on Route 20, but that's all right, but they're spending millions of dollars, all right? This is their chance. This is our chance. That's why we want to push for it. That section of Route 20 is a dangerous route. There's cars turning in, turning out, there's restaurants, there's gas stations there, there's drugstores there, and eventually when they put sidewalks in, there's going to be a lot of pedestrians. This is our chance to do it right. And by doing it right, you have to have traffic lights at one existing development and another one that's coming in. So this is our chance to do that section of Route 20 right. Not wrong like the state has done a couple times. All right, so we push the state, we get people involved, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to get it if we move forward on this project after the fact. So, you know, whether we vote tonight or Monday night, I can't see myself supporting it without, I mean, these are residents of Marlborough. These are people, all right, in two potentially developments. But no, I got the people that use that. The 17,000 cars that go up and down there every day. The people that run into the restaurants, Burger Kings and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is our chance to straighten out a problem. I mean, I can remember that was a problem 40 or 50 years ago. I think I brought it up before. I remember a woman getting killed there the day before Christmas at her mailbox. All right? Cars travel 45, 50 miles an hour there. All right? And a yellow light's not going to cut that down. So I think, you know, we thought it out, we've talked about it, but let's do it right. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair, Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin.
So I don't know if I'm trying to read the committee and the comments that have been made. I certainly have some comments to make about the project overall. I don't know if we're heading in that direction or not yet. I know other folks have made that made it clear. I agree with a lot of what other folks have said. I am probably not going to change my mind between now and Monday. So you know, I would be happy to vote on this if you want to move forward in that matter tonight. I certainly don't want to drag this out any further for the applicant, just on the pretense that you know, some of us would change our minds where it sounds like we haven't. So I don't know if you want to kind of make that decision, and then I'll hold my powder, as it were, not to to conserve time, if that's how you want to move.
Right, and I guess at this point I was just looking for input. I'm sure that as you vote, you would be able to, or would have been able to. A lot of you have already made your comments pretty clear. So I see that Attorney Falk has his hand up again. I'm going to let him speak, and then I'm going to leave it up to Councilor Wagner to decide if she wants to make a motion or hold off. Attorney Falk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I would ask again, it's only 6 more days. If you could afford us that time to allow us to consider our options. We're hearing you loud and clear. At least 3 members are saying without a light, they don't support the project. At least give us 6 days to think through if there's more that we may be able to do here, an alternate approach, or other ways that we can apply pressure to work to get a light here. It's only 6 more days. You're going to be meeting again on the 1st anyway, and it gives you time, gives us time to at least consider our options before you take a vote. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rossing.
Rossing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will remind you and the Urban Affairs, you need to amend, you got to know what you're voting on. So you've made some decisions. You got to make an amend, you got to amend the permit so you actually know what you're voting on, right? So I would just remind you of that before you cast your, if you're going to cast that vote tonight. My observation is get it cleaned up and vote in a week, but that's my opinion. You can do it as however you want. Thank you.
Right, and I guess if there is a motion that's made tonight, it would be approve it as amended, and regardless of whether it's tonight or in the future, because it's not the same special permit as what was originally submitted. So that would have to be clear in the motion. So, Councilor Wagner, I'll put you on the spot.
I mean, from my perspective, it's clear. We talked about the special permit, what the amendments are, but I'm willing to, if we think that the amendments, we'll have a clean copy for Monday to bring it up for a vote again. But I mean, if I appreciate Attorney Falk. I guess I'm thinking of how many more meetings can we make the the project team come. It's very clear. There's no added signage. There's no changes that are going to change the fact that the core issue that I brought up and described as a safety concern. So I mean, if waiting till Monday, nothing's going to change. It's frustrating to me, frankly, but if we want to wait till there's a clean copy of I'm trying to respect the process, a clean copy and vote then, I'm willing to have the motion tabled till then, or postponed, or whatever the word is.
Right. So if there's no actual motion, we would just continue this. We can carry it forward. I don't know if the meeting for Monday has actually been posted. If not, we can amend the posting. That's not an issue because we have plenty of time.
It has not been posted yet. Madam Chair, it has not been posted yet, so we have time.
Okay, so this could be added to our agenda. It does give time for the applicant to take what we have and make a clean copy that we would then look at to take action. And if he has any other information at that point that would maybe make a decision by the members, that would be helpful also. So if that is okay, if there is no actual motion from any members of the committee, this remains in committee and we can add it. Councilor Perlman, do you have your hand up?
Yes, just a point of information, Madam Chair. Mr. DePercio has his hand raised, so I don't know if he had comments to offer.
Oh, again, thank you. I did not realize it. Mr. DePercio, do you have some comments?
Madam Chair, yeah, I just was going to make a suggestion. If the committee is inclined to table it till your next meeting, one thing you might ask the applicant to provide, if they can, is some sort of input from Mass DOT on the prospect of a traffic signal. We really haven't seen anything from them with regard to that prospect, especially given that there'd be potentially some funding put towards it. It might be an interesting thing to ask the applicant for.
Attorney Falk, you have a response to that? Was that one of your plans?
It's among the many things on my to-do list this week, yes.
All right, I will wish you the best of luck in your conversations and hope for a positive outcome at our meeting on Monday. Anybody else with final comments? Councilor Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to be clear, anything short of something in writing that says the state will put a light in, so I respect any more time being put into this to come back with a maybe, we might get a light if 3 years down the road, is not going to address the problem. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Anybody
Madam
else?
Chair, Councilor Oram, thank you. I would like to also ask that if we have any information that is to be received before your meeting and not be received the day of, as we received quite a bit of communication today that's just not fair to all us fellow councilors. I'd ask maybe that you provide a deadline of Friday for all information to be reviewed and received by the City Council for review for your meeting on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. My understanding is the only thing that we would be getting would be a clean copy of the special permit.
Madam Chair, it's Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We're also seeing if we can get any type of response back from the state. If I would say that if we're not getting a promising, or we haven't gotten any answer by the state by Monday, the state works slower than us, and I get that. This may take longer to roll out, and I don't think, I'm leaving it up to the applicant to find out what he can from the state. So I don't want the Monday to be the deadline for this either if they can't get a straight answer from the state. So I don't mind giving them a little bit more time if they can't get their act together by Monday. If they can get a light and they need an extra week, I got no problems with that, or 2 weeks. It's up to them to figure out where they want to go with this. So, thank you.
All right, so we will see what what Attorney Falk can bring to us at our meeting on Monday. Any final comments from anybody before I ask for a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. This is postponed in committee, will be taken up at our next meeting. Councilor Landers.
Councilor Landers votes yes.
Councilor Navin.
Councilor Navin votes yes.
Councilor Wagner.
Councilor Wagner votes yes.
Councilor Doucette.
Councilor Doucette votes yes.
Councilor Roby votes yes. So we are adjourned. It is 9:16. Thank you, everyone, for your input and your time tonight. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.